Ordained to offer exclusively the traditional Latin Mass.
The conditions under which people are living.
I really tried to distance myself from religious life.
It's just my desire to be a catechist.
Go back to reality and see what's on our table. It's quite depressing.
Well, it was one of extreme shock because I was very, very friendly with one of those who was one of the Jesuits, and also with one of the Dominican sisters. We had got on extremely well together, and we were a very good team. And later the shock really increased because I had in fact lengthened my leave by 3 weeks, because the third year of the teacher training were on teaching practice, and so which they did in their home areas. So I had lengthened my leave by 3 weeks, otherwise I would have been one of those who was shot. For the first year we didn't come in contact with any of the Zandler forces. But after a year, I went up to the hospital one day and a man came up to me and said, "I am Happy Trigger, Father. Do you like beer?" And I said, "Well, yes, I do like a bottle of beer, but in the evening." He said, "Father, I will have a crate sent round this evening." And this was the first encounter that we had with the Zandler forces who were round about us. And from that time on, they used to come to the mission regularly in search of a drink in the evening. We had been teaching I started teaching in the secondary school, so we were quite tired in the evening, and then they would come in and they wanted to dance to Thomas Matfumo records with us. So we would spend the early part of the night dancing to those records. They were completely at ease with us. One of them once gave me his pistol to look after. AKs were up against the walls of our sitting room as we danced. And once 2 of them came along and said, "Father, we've walked from Mrehwa, we're very tired, can you give us somewhere to sleep?" And we said, "Of course." So the relationship with the Zandler forces was extremely easy, except with some of the younger ones who, and especially with the Mijiba, who felt that this treatment of the missionaries was not what was expected. So that the war went on like that. We had one incident which most people know about. One of the Zandler forces was shot from a helicopter through the roof of an African hut, and he had a large wound. So he was taken along to the hospital where Father Johnson, who is a trained dentist, was, and he said to them, look, what's happened to him? They said, oh, he fell on a sharp piece of fencing. And Nigel said, don't say nonsense, that he's been shot. I can see the entry room and the exit room, and he's going to die unless you take him to hospital. They said, there's no possibility of doing that. You treat him yourself. Now, Father Johnson had had some experience of treating wounds while he was doing an experiment in Glasgow. So he stitched him up, and he was in the hospital. A day or two afterwards, we did not know, but there was an informant on the mission, and along came the security forces saying, we have heard that there is one of the terrorists on the mission. And they searched, and we were very worried, but we wondered what would happen. But eventually they left the mission. And we found out afterwards that he had been put into the labour ward, put a duku on his head, and that's how we got away with it. Later he was, the informant informed them again, and they found him, and they took him off to retrain him as an auxiliary. But he ran away from them and rejoined his group. But I'm told he was never allowed to be a full member of the group again because they weren't quite sure of him because of this. But towards the end of the war, we had two who used to get very drunk. And Father Johnson told him, you know, you wouldn't be able to fire that AK straight. And he was rather upset by this, and then messages started to come around that he was saying that we were sellouts. And so the Archbishop and our local superior, Father Wardell, removed us from the mission because it was considered too dangerous for us to be there. Well, it was our job, and we wanted to continue with it. And in fact, once we came in contact, as I've said, with the Zanla forces, we found them extremely friendly with us. And one night they had a pungwe, to which they invited us on the football field. And while the local girls brought us up food as special guests, they told the people, you know, that the missionaries were on their side and that they were good people who were wanting the same things as they did. And in fact, they used to tell us, you must be just like us, prepared to die for the cause. It's very difficult because in most places where missionaries were killed, the reason seems to have been that they had no local people around them to speak on their behalf. But this was not the case at Musami. And so the local people clearly thought that it was not the local Zanla forces who were around. And so it was thought it could be a government sponsored to discredit the Zanla forces, that they were killing missionaries. But there's no really strong evidence for either position. But what has been clear is that amongst Zanla and Zipra forces, there were at times people who were anti-missionary. And, you know, you could get one group with a leader like that, and he could be responsible for the death of missionaries. Probably that's the case with Father Pipa in Kangaire. Well, Father Chitewe was left at the mission. He found the strain too much, and he was replaced by Father Martin Chawira, who was there for until we went back to the mission again, in fact. I was sent to teach at St. Ignatius for 2 terms, where we were also visited by Zanla a couple of times while I was there. And then I was moved to Makundi.